So I want to ask you, which of the two came first, the chicken or the egg? There exists a chicken and egg problem today in relation to jobs and experience. You need a job in order to get experience, and you need experience in order to get a job. I'm pretty sure everyone early on in their careers faces this problem. Like, how do you get experience without having any experience? What comes first, a job or an experience? In many cases, networking comes first. I had absolutely no experience in writing 2 years ago. I had not even written a blog post. And I was in the Wall Street line back then. I was studying finance in New York. And I used to spend most of my time watching comedy videos of AIB and reading philosophy articles written by Logical Indian. And I ended up writing, out of nowhere, a comedy and philosophy combined book called Selfienomics. And I was very passionate about it. And I decided to leave my job, and I came to India to get it published. And I realized that in India, most things work according to not what you know, but according to who you know. And I had absolutely zero contacts in the publishing industry. Like most of my friends and family, they don't read books. In fact, most of my friends and family, they haven't read a book. So I had absolutely zero contacts in the industry, and I didn't know where to begin. And what I did was I just Googled, like, how to publish a book in India. And all the links that came up, in the first page, second page, third page, they were all asking me to pay them, the publishers, to publish my book. And interestingly, my book would only be available on Amazon and not in the bookstores. But as an author, I wanted to be paid to write a book. And I wanted my book to be available in the bookstores. So I actually made a trip to the bookstores like Crossford, Oxford, Starmark, and stuff like that. And I picked out, over the course of a few days, I picked out more than 100 books from the non-fiction category. And I realized that most authors, they always thank their editor and agents in the acknowledgement section of the book. So what I did was, I made a list of all these editors and agents, and I noticed that the same 5 to 7 agents' names kept coming up again and again and again. So I sent them a personalized email saying that, I loved all the books that you worked on previously. Even though I hadn't read the books, I just read the acknowledgement section of those books. And since it was a personalized email, they took me seriously. One thing led to the other. And eventually I signed up with Bloomsbury, the publishers of Harry Potter, at the age of 23. So this entire networking experience was very, changed my perspective on networking. And I think some of the learnings which I have, I want to share with you, which will be relevant not only to a professional network, but also a personal network. Networking is always associated with connecting with others. But I believe networking begins with connecting with your own self. Try to understand your own self. Do you prefer talking about certain topics? Are you uncomfortable talking about certain things? Do you prefer texting? Do you prefer emails? Do you prefer meeting someone face to face? Are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? I personally am an introvert. I hate making small talk, I completely hate it. And I love spending time alone. But according to me, you don't have to be a loner in order to be happy alone. You can be an introvert. You can be someone who loves to spend time alone, but still have a great network. Now, you may wonder, how can an introvert have a great network? But before answering that, I want to first ask you a couple of questions. How many friends do you have? Think about it. How many friends do you have? And secondly, how big is your network? Most people get confused when I ask them these two questions, because they think it's the same question being repeated. But these are two very different questions, and your answer to them will probably determine how strong your network is and whether or not you understand networking as a whole. So, as I already said, I studied commerce in both school as well as college. And this is what my network map looked like till a couple of years ago. So, since I was a passive introvert, most of the friends I made were those who were sitting around me. And since I was in commerce, all my friends ended up being in the commerce stream. And what happened was that since most of them kind of knew each other, and they didn't have too many friends outside of the stream, so even though I had 7 friends, my network was just limited to those 7 people, since they kind of all knew each other. And I wanted to make more friends, so I made the mistake which every single person who begins networking tries to make. I tried to be friends with anyone and everyone. So I pushed myself outside my comfort zone, I made small talk, and I made 5 new friends. So instead of having just 7 friends, now I had 12 friends. But all of them were in the commerce stream. And they all kind of knew each other. So my network was still limited to just 12 people. So my network was still limited to those 12 people. And, as an introvert, it's very exhaustive to have 12 friends. Even 12 friends is a lot for an introvert. You have to remember their birthdays. You have to call them up once in a while. You have to meet them every 2 to 3 weeks. It gets annoying to make the same conversations again and again and again. And at the end of the day, your network is just limited to 12 people. In fact, some extroverts also have like 20, 30 friends. But if all of them belong to the same social circle, their network will still be limited to only 20 to 30 people. And this brings me to the wingman theory. A wingman is someone who connects you to a group of people different from who you already know. So a wingman is sort of like a broker. Like, in finance, you have a broker who connects a buyer and a seller. Similarly, a wingman is like a broker who connects you to his friends and thereby grows your personal network. And the key to having a vast network is to have diverse wingmen. So what I did was, I joined a sports team, a sports club. I joined a couple of internships, and through that I made friends outside of the commerce stream. I made friends in liberal arts, I made friends in engineering, I made friends in medical school, and what I did was I cut down on some of the friends I had in the commerce stream. क्योंकि हर एक friend ज़रूरी नहीं होता है. But if you notice, majority of my friends are still in the commerce stream. So it's natural for you, whatever you're studying or whatever you're working, to make more friends in that stream. So what I had was, I had 4 friends in commerce, but I had 1 friend each in liberal arts, engineering, and medical school, and they were my wingmen. They connected me to their friends who were very different from me. And even though I had much fewer friends, I just had 7 friends, and earlier in the previous example I had 12 friends, my network was wider, because they were connecting me to their friends, and now I had 15 friends. So the key to having a vast network is to have diverse wingmen. Instead of just building a network of those people who are around you, build a networking plan. The people who are great at networking are not just lucky enough to bump into the right people at the right place at the right time. They make the proactive measure to know the right people who are at the right place and at the right time for them. Instead of just focusing on knowing a lot of people, focus on knowing the right people who can connect you to those who matter. Just like a manager delegates some of his responsibility to his employees or to his subordinates, you should delegate some of your networking responsibility to your friends instead of doing it all by yourself. But just to make one thing clear, this is an oversimplified version of any network map. In real life, there are a lot more complications, and the engineering department never has so many girls. A real-life networking map looks something like this. There are a lot more overlaps and a lot more complexities, but I just wanted to make it simple. But now you may wonder, why is the wingman theory so important? Because India is a country of 1.2 billion people. We have 1,000+ languages. We're the birthplace of multiple religions. India is perhaps the most diverse country in the planet. But for some reason, all our friends seem to know each other. For some reason, our social circles are so interlinked. Because India, even though it has 1.2 billion people, is still divided into a million small clusters of homogeneous people. We prefer to be friends with those who have the same age as us, those who have the same caste, same religion, those who speak the same language as us, those who share the same political beliefs, those who have the same thought process, and those who have the same wealth. No, actually, I made a mistake. The only place that we make an exception is wealth. We prefer to be with those who have same or more wealth. When I was in school back in Calcutta, I noticed that there were distinct Marwadi and Bengali groups right from the age 6. Just imagine the kind of social conditioning that goes on in our brain, that even when we are 6 years old, we have that divisive mindset that, this person is different from me, so I don't want to hang around with the person. And I know the same thing happens in most other schools and colleges in India, where we try to stick around to those who have a similar nature to us. Every year there are a bunch of students who go to US and UK for studies. And then when they go there, the reason they give is, one of the top reasons is exposure. They want to go to the US and UK for exposure. And then when they go there, they just hang around with Indians. So we have a tendency to just hang around with those people who we feel comfortable with. Our nature is to be friends with those who share a similar nature to us. And when India is such a diverse country with people from different natures, I never understand why we never try to find exposure within our own country. A great man had once said, and I'm not talking about myself, a great man had once said, become friends with those people who are of a different age from you. Hang around with those people who belong to a different social class. Speak to people who speak a different first language. This is how you see the world. This is how you grow. This is how you can make your network into your net worth. In the example I use here, I used college majors as the source of filter to categorize my wingmen, but it can be applied in any networking field. That's the best part about this. So this is how my network looks like when I divide it according to cities. When I divide my friends according to cities, and I make a proactive measure to try and make more friends outside of Calcutta. So, last night I stayed at my friend's place in Bombay instead of staying in a hotel. So the Wingman series is already helping me out. I saved money on the hotel just because I made an effort to make friends from the different cities. I've started now taking the HR department more seriously because I understand how they can play a crucial role in connecting different departments. This is how Harry Potter's brief version of a Harry Potter's network map. Ron Weasley was the best wingman in every way. The best part about the wingman theory is how it plays a crucial role in our own personal life, in our relationships and our family setting. When people talk about networking, it's always from a career angle. But what about our relationships? What about our family? I noticed in college, a lot of people made the mistake of making most of their friends through their girlfriend and boyfriend. So when there was a breakup between a girlfriend and a boyfriend, it led to a breakup between the group itself. They lost all their friends after having a breakup. And while it's possible in girlfriend-boyfriends to still remain friends with some of their friends after a breakup, in a marriage setting, the things get much more complex. Even in the 21st century, in India, especially in towns and villages and even some mainstream cities in India, a lot of women are not only financially dependent on their husbands, but they're also socially dependent on their husbands. And after marriage, they often have a tendency to lose some of the connections which they had from before, like some of their extended family or some of the friends they had made before. And a lot of their social circle often becomes their husband's relatives or their husband's friends' wives. Their husband becomes like their primary wingman. And what happens is that this puts the women in a very detrimental position. Because I believe that a network is like your social capital. And if you're socially dependent on one person, and in case you have a divorce, you can become socially bankrupt. This is why, as important as it is to have wingmen, it's equally important not to be over-dependent on any one wingman. We should always strive to have diverse wingmen. The goal is always to be interdependent, not over-dependent, and not even independent. The goal is always to be interdependent. Who are the wingmen in your life? Who are the people who typically connect you to new people? And how can you add more wingmen to your life? Start focusing on building a network with your relationships and start building a relationship with your network. Thank you.